Okay guys, so we got the nose cut off, that trauma's gone, and we're ready to put on one of these little nose adapter kits. And the style varies a little bit depending on which motor you're getting. This is a very typical one. This is for a Cobra motor, which is probably the most universal one. It has 25 millimeters across from center to center here. All of the same way this way. It's a 25 millimeter bolt hole circle, if you will. Anyway, so that actually carries quite a few different type of motor attachments on that. And it has a little, you can see a little scoop area here to take in the phase wires wherever motor is. As the wires come down, they get wrapped around the bottom side. Anyway, and there is enough room in there to have that freely spin around. If you get into a motor larger than 37 millimeters in diameter, the largest part, you're going to get into troubles. But anyway, there's that one. There's one that's already put on. That's for like a glider drive motor that has actually the ports coming out the back, so we don't need that carry down here. So you can see it's more of a smooth transition there. There's one that's done there. Anyway, just a couple quick tips on epoxying that thing together. So I use, and you can use whatever you're comfortable with, but I would suggest at least a 20-minute epoxy. Don't do like the 6-minute epoxy. You're gonna be freaking out. There's just too many little things and adjustments to be made in order to make that happen in a convenient time, I think. And so I get a 20 to 30 minute type of epoxy, mix it up. However they say, most of them are same amount, part A, part B. Just check on the label. Mix it up in a little cup and a little popsicle stick. I usually cut off the end of it so that I can squeegee out the bottom a lot. Make sure that's mixed up really well. And then I'm just taking and I'm putting that, gooping that along this flange area, which will be inserted inside the cutoff piece of the fuselage all the way around there. And then I will also, I usually try to sand out in case there's any type of wax release stuff from the manufacturing process in here. Just scuff sand that a little bit before I start. Same epoxy, and I'll rub that all the way in through there. Try to kind of rotate it as needed so it doesn't start to run or goop on you. The thicker epoxies work well that way. On these, you do see that there's kind of a deeper cutout or recess on the top and on the bottom of these nose adapters. That's because of the reinforced material that they use to put these two sides together when they make them is a little bit thicker on the top and the bottom here. And so when that goes to set in there, it just fits in there a little bit easier, like that. Now as you push that in with the epoxy on both sides, it's going to squeegee it out and you're going to have a little bit of a mess here on the outside. You take a paper towel and squeegee and clean that up. We're going to be sanding and bondoing in this area anyway, so it's not a real big deal. But there's no reason to have to sand down a big old glob if you can just wipe it off while it's wet. Now one trick that I have learned through the process of doing this, even though these have been designed to fit in there pretty nicely, you can see there still is a little bit of a twist, just kind of the nature of an oval. There's a little bit of a give or play in there. And so if you're real particular on trying to make that to where the orientation is as aligned as possible, you can use these red lines a little bit as markings, to try to carry that out. But the thing that I found that's easiest, which I have already on this one that I've epoxied together, so I can't move it for you, but you'll get the idea, is take a line and just draw it across. So put this in, twist it all the way to where you're feeling resistance in one direction of rotation, and draw a line all the way across there. So the line will go from there and it will carry across. Right now it's down here because I twisted it down. And so you'll have one line, right? And then twist it down the other way. And with that same line here, take that same line and carry it across toward the bottom. So now that shows the extent of how far that kind of naturally wants to twist, right? And then just move that line to the center. Kind of make a line right here in between those two extremes and line that up. And so when you go to finally push that in and try and get it ready to set up, I usually take some masking tape and tape it around here and around here, because this does sometimes tend to want to kind of push out as it cures. So that masking tape will keep it nice and tight. But just to make sure that line is through that center, and that should give you a really good orientation so it's not wanting to be skewed one way or the other. I hope that makes sense. You can just take alcohol or whatever and wipe that off, or it'll be covered with Bondo anyway as far as that line. So that's a useful tip, I think, on helping get that all aligned as you put that together. When you come back in 20 or 30 minutes, you should be able to take the tape off and have it ready to go, as you see here. Sometimes you'll get quite a bit of a bulge of glue that is in here. If you want to be careful while it's wet, you can kind of clean that up too and kind of squeegee that out. You don't want any to be building up way up high here, because see these little slots here, those are for the 3-phase wires of the motor. They snap right in there and keep those down below so they're not bouncing around or getting up to where the motor is spinning around. Just good wire management back up in there. So that's that, and then after we Bondo that and get it all cleaned up and sanded and painted several coats, I usually do several coats in the front before I even mess around with the rest of it, because this doesn't take a whole lot back here. We're just basically trying to, we've sanded off the white and the red stripe, and we're just bringing back the uniformity of the color all the way through there. So I do several more coats here, because the grains on this 3D printing, see if you can see a little bit closer, there are grains there that you'll need to be painting through, and so we'll paint it and then sand off the highs, keep the lows, and paint it, sand off the highs, keep the lows. So within 3 or 4 coats, you should have a pretty good looking finish, pretty good transition through there. All right, I think that should get you going in that direction. And give me a buzz if you have any questions. Thanks, guys. Bye.